Welcome everybody. This is SharePoint Patterns and Practices General SharePoint Development Special Interest Group. So a lot of words on the title. It is November 28th today, and it is again the bi-weekly meeting. I can't even remember how many years we've been doing this bi-weekly meetings, basically weekly meetings already. But it's good to see the interest on the development models which we're having. And especially nowadays, when it gets to be much more than SharePoint, it's much more than just SharePoint. It is all of the other things as well. And we're looking into expanding all of that stuff in the future. Now, for today, we're going to have a quick recap. I can collect a few slides, which I'm going to talk about around in general SharePoint or Microsoft messaging. And then we have a recap on the open source projects, so PnP CSOM Core, PnP PowerShell, and modernization tooling, and so what has happened within those things within the past 2 weeks. And then we have Chris Kent doing probably something related on war horses, which might sound weird for those who do not know what I'm actually talking, but you'll get it whenever we get to Chris's screen. I highly recommend actually checking Chris's recordings if you haven't seen war horses in the past. Now, and then we do have a Sergei Sergeev from Mastaq showing basically showing a really cool solution on how to show the progress of the PnP provisioning for the SharePoint using SharePoint Application Customizer and SignalR. And this is basically a blog post which he wrote, which explains this process and then how you can indicate back from the end user if you start the provisioning from a site design, that's where is it progressing and where is it actually moving. So really cool solution. We're looking into certain options there in the future for natively out of the box as well. But right now, Sergei's solution is really nice way of actually making this happen. Now, there is one caveat on his demo, which is that his family is apparently most likely, well, is about to go bigger, so he's about to get a baby, and if the timing isn't horrible, the baby comes after the call or after, but obviously if baby needs to come earlier, then baby comes earlier, and then Sergei is going to be rescheduled for another day. So there's always this, for those who have got a babies of their family, they know that you can't really schedule them, so they might arrive on any moment. So we'll see how this goes. But hopefully he can actually join on the call. Sergei, by the way, if you are on the call, there you are. Excellent. I was just waiting for you to actually chat on the chat window, so I know that you're there. So now we're in the 1 hour time window, hopefully. Hopefully you will get this hour still, but obviously if you need to go, you need to go. Now, a few things from our side of the house, quickly clicking that one so we get moving. A few opportunities or recapping the opportunities to participate within the community. Demo solution or technical pattern, feel free to reach out to us, or then we reach out for the people if we write something in the blog post and all of that. We do that as well, but we do highly recommend that if you have a core solution or a demo or a pattern which you would like to demonstrate, just ping us and we'll get you scheduled. Because the reality is that we're having also a hard time on following up on all of the cool stuff what's happening in the world. So feel free to kind of let us know that, hey, I wrote this kind of a thing, or I have this kind of a solution. Could I actually demonstrate that in these calls? You can definitely contribute in GitHub. That's the easiest way to actually get involved. Well, kind of easiest way to get involved. And please note, if you're not super familiar with the GitHub and what does it mean and how do I contribute, we do actually have an initiatives around that as well. So David Warner and Hugo Bernier has been, well, David first and then Hugo has been assisting, has been starting this kind of an initiative where they're helping people to actually get started on contributing on open source and using GitHub. And obviously those rules apply to any project, but they basically show how to get started on contributing on the SharePoint Dev Docs and all of these things. So thank you, David, for that one, and Hugo. There has been a lot of nice discussions on social media around that one. And then the final piece on the slide, provide feedback. Super important. Don't complain. Just don't complain by yourself. Complain in a way that we know why are you complaining or what's missing. So that's the super important thing. Every now and then we get feedback on or hearing stuff and hearing feedback, and then we start asking, well, have you told anybody? And the answer is no. Well, let us know. The only way we can actually make sure that the modern experiences or the modern SharePoint or the modern development patterns are good enough for you is that you tell us. and that's what's actually missing. So really, really important piece. Please don't be hesitant of sending any emails or sending any social media or feedback around what should be there. That's super important thing. Now, moving on slides, quick recap on our assets. So SharePoint Dev Docs documentation, AKMS SP Dev Docs, SharePoint Dev Videos, AKMS SP Dev Videos, SharePoint Dev Issues for development-related issues, and then open source in general is in SharePoint or in PnP organization. I should actually add the OneDrive there as well, because OneDrive and SharePoint engineering is combined. So that's a good point. I will fix that slide later. Now, a few reminders from our side, just to recap on the latest things which have happened also during Ignite. This is a slide which we probably give on the presentations now for quite a long time as well. We are working on an updated developer training modules all the time, so there is already a lot of Microsoft 365 developer modules available. And some of them are already available from the Microsoft Learn, which is a great thing. Unfortunately, SharePoint stuff is not yet there, but it's coming there as well sooner or later. We also previewed a new Microsoft 365 developer certificate in Ignite a few weeks back. And this is a really cool thing because a lot of the people in the community have been asking on, hey, how would I certify myself on these things? So what is the certification for SharePoint? Why can't we see these things? And the answer is, for now, there's no specific certification for SharePoint, but we started by creating a generic Microsoft 365 developer certificate, a developer associate certification, and then we're looking into having additional more deep dive certificates on top of that in the future. This is a combined certificate, so there's a identity graph, SharePoint, Teams, Office add-ins, what am I missing? Graph, obviously, on that certificate in a high level, and then there will be additional more detailed certificates later. But really have a look on that one. It's in beta right now. And the final piece over there, please join the Office 365 developer program. Get yourself a new Microsoft 365 E5 developer subscription, which will automatically renew as long as you use the environment for developer purposes. So as an example, you used to use SharePoint Online Workbench for testing your web parts and all of that stuff. That is a development operation. So that's getting then locked on the backlog of those developer operations have been happening. So really cool stuff. And by the way, we haven't had any progress on transforming any of the old developer certificates as developer tenants to that new AE5. So unfortunately, it seems that that's not going to happen. So sign up for a new email and you should be good to go. Now, let's move to the PnP CSOM Core. So Bert, what's happening over there?
Let's see. Well, good news is tomorrow is release day for December, 1 week earlier than usual due to the European SharePoint conference next week. So we want to have things out before the conference. Now, what will be in CSOM Core? Think not that much this month, but nevertheless, so we have a new has Teams team extension method. Essentially, like if you have a group connector site, then does this group also have a Teams team connected to it that you can check with this particular extension method. And there is a rewrite, some updates in the site exists method. Actually, the site exists now is deprecated, and nowadays you have to call the site exists anywhere method, which gives more detailed information about the site, not just if it's there or not, but also if it's recyclable, if it's being provisioned, etc. So there's some more details. But yeah, that's it for PnP CSOM Core Vesa. So not really that much this month, but there is more work.
One thing to call out is the multilingual page support, so which we're working on. It's not there yet, but it's coming. Definitely.
It's coming, yeah. So it's also in progress category, of course. So it's coming. Yes. Definitely, yeah.
Good. And then let's actually go to the PnP PowerShell.
So we have a new add PnP Teams team commandlet aligned with the previous method, so you can essentially trigger the creation of a team. So trigger the teamify action, like we also sometimes call it. There's a get PnP tenant ID commandlet as well. So it retrieves your tenant ID, might be added in certain situations. Then we have updates for the convert to PnP client-side page commandlet. The main update there is supporting Delph block page modernization, which is pretty new, and we'll talk about that in a second as well. Yep. And finally, there is the get PnP exception commandlet, which now returns a correlation ID and a timestamp, which is really handy. Like if you have an issue and you kind of want to understand, like want to look in your ULS logs, it's always really handy to have a correlation ID and then a timestamp to kind of make the search more tailored and more focused on what you are looking for. So that will definitely help in those scenarios. And
actually, let me be more specific on that one. So whenever you open up a Premier support case or a support case, that information is super critical for the support engineer. So because they can use that then to check behind of the scenes what's actually happening. So.
Yes, absolutely. That's why we did it. So
yeah.
Again, looking forward to more PRs, and also I didn't update that piece of the slide, but PowerShell release will also be tomorrow, like with Core and like Modernization. The releases are always kind of in sync. So tomorrow, Friday, you will have the December versions from PowerShell as well.
And then the modernization tooling.
Something new. So we have released a partner guidance. Now, before you jump on it, if you're not a partner, definitely still useful for you, but there's more guidance meant for folks that work with their customers and want to modernize sites for their customers, want to do engagement with the customer to modernize their sites. So what does it contain? It contains reviewed modernization scripts. So we now have like a bulk modernization script where you can feed a list of site collections and will then modernize all those site collections. That's been kind of reviewed and updated with the latest things, including the add teams team commandlet, for example. So it will also teamify the site collections as part of modernization. But again, it's a PowerShell script, meaning you can change it, whatever, and put in and remove the pieces that you don't need. But it's pretty extensive and quite flexible. You can really, by just providing the right input already, kind of tailor how the script will work. Next to that, there is PowerPoint decks. There's one deck for you to kind of pitch a modernization program with your customers, kind of a sales type of deck. And then there's like a very extensive delivery guide, which walks you through the steps of running the scan, understanding the scan results, and then processing the scan results, understanding what will happen if you modernize a site. All the individual steps are really clearly explained, and then doing the actual modernization work. So like a really step-by-step guide to take you by the hand in your modernization journey with the customer. Just in general, the modernization tooling updates. Tomorrow is December version from page transformation. So page transformation is the framework, the tools that you can use to modernize pages. So any page, wiki, web part page, publishing page, blog page can be modernized. And as of tomorrow, you can also modernize your Delph blog pages. That has been added on demand from community. And the reason is, well, we are actually retiring Delph blogs. And we have a timeline where we at a certain point will even just drop the Delph blocks altogether from the environment, meaning they will disappear. So having a way for you to understand where am I using Delph blocks and a way to read the Delph block page and convert it into a modern page in the communication site, that will kind of give you a path forward when it comes to Delph blocks. And that's a key feature in the December version of page transformation. Next to that, there is some additional flexibility when you do SharePoint add-in transformation. So SharePoint add-in parts are web parts delivered by a provider hosted or SharePoint hosted add-in. These parts do work on modern pages. So the default transformation behavior today is we just take over the part. Your add-in becomes an add-in on the modern page. Now, some customers want, and I think that's a good move, want to replace those add-ins with SharePoint framework components or drop them altogether. And the December version will give you some more flexibility on saying like this particular add-in part will be replaced with the SharePoint framework web part. This one will be dropped, etc. So you have more control there. Looking forward for the January version is taxonomy mapping. Like if I'm on-prem and I have taxonomy in use, how do I kind of get the same taxonomy available in online when my page moves from on-prem to online? Then the scanner. So Delph block support is one of the new things. So you can, if you do the run the block scan component, you also get Delph blocks showing up in the report. So you can identify, am I using Delph? Am I impacted if Delph goes away? Delph blocks go away, sorry, just to be clear. Delph's not going away, Delph blocks are going away. Then there's some minor things like the group connectors will show like whether a site has a Teams team or not. You can, if you use certificate for Azure authentication, you can store a certificate locally and just provide the path to the certificate essentially. So, and maybe one thing to mention is the refactoring. So the scanner has been fully refactored. So the whole scan logic is a separate assembly disconnected from the UI layer. So which means that you can take the scan component and run it as a service somewhere else or integrate it in another product, whatever that you want. So it's more reusable for you going forward. I think that sums up Vesa for the modernization tooling. Meaning I've been asked if folks want additional things in the modernization space, especially for the scanner. Meaning I'm kind of out of things to do there. So if there's something that you guys are missing, just let us know. Create an issue in the issue list and it will end up on the roadmap then probably.
So Bert has nothing to do. He's just sitting on his table waiting for somebody
saying
to tell
that,
him
but
meaning supposed to be done. Yeah.
Sometimes you think your feature complete, and then suddenly you have 20 new demands, requests, and things, and then okay, I should have asked that. But meaning, no, really. But the point is, if there's something that you miss, if there's something that you think is useful to add and adds value for you, let us know.
Yeah, there's a question quickly from Daniel before we go to the Chris's demo. Are we adding a web part mapping for the community search results web part? And I don't think we have that by default in the default mapping, but you can actually add it by yourself.
Yeah, we don't have it by default. You can add it by yourself. You can change the mapping file. But it might indeed be some good feedback to potentially have this as an easier to use option. Like you just turn it on if you want to use a community search report. Yeah.
Cool. Then let's actually move into the demo section of the day. So Chris, I saw you on the call already and you were making funny jokes on the chat.
Oh yeah. All right. Everybody, I'm Chris Kent. I'm out of Knoxville, Tennessee, and all that stuff. So let's take a look here. So Vesa mentioned something about warrior horses. I don't know what you're talking about because it's Thanksgiving and there's only one animal you can talk about on Thanksgiving. So let's all head over to our classic warrior turkey site that we all have. Check that out. As it is Thanksgiving, I also wanted to mention I'm incredibly thankful for this demo because it's gotten me out of lunch with my in-laws today. So woo! I'll have a different Thanksgiving dinner tonight. All right. So let's take a look. So here we are on our classic warrior turkey site, and they've got this nice gobble list over here. Let's check that out. If we head over to the list, you can see we've got, let's zoom that a little bit. There we go. We've got our entries here. We've got some kind of code here. And what that is actually a YouTube embed code. So we're going to go over here and we can take an example of that. So say we wanted to add another sweet turkey video. I've got this turkey chase video. Let's grab that and let's not listen to it. And this little code up here, which so we can see that a little better right here in the URL. You see, I'm going to grab that. I'm going to paste that into my list, and that's how you get kind of the unique identifier for a video. So let's just hit new, and of course this will be called gobble. And our value is there. I'm going to save that guy. So what are we doing with this, right? Like, why is this helpful? Well, we can do this cool thing where if we go back to the web page here, we're going to hit a new page. And we'll just do a blank page. We're going to create kind of a miniature application. So we're going to call this, gobble. That sounds great. And we'll change that image. Let's see. Oh, look at all these lovely suggestions, but we're going to upload one. All right, we'll grab some turkey heads. That sounds good. All right, we'll add that image there. We're going to move this around. The idea is I'm quickly just kind of making a page, right? Very exciting. But down here, I'm going to take this section and I'm going to make it let's say a 1/3 left. We'll put that. I'm going to zoom back out a little bit because that's driving me nuts. Okay. So now what I can do here, instead of adding text, right? Let's delete that out of here. I'm going to add a list view web part. Sorry. Grab my list. See, I only got the one list gobble, so I'm going to grab that. And you see, there you go. I've got all my exciting stuff here, and that's cool. And that's great that I could show that. But what if I come over here and I add this embed? And so I add the embed web part. And some of you guys may be aware you can embed things by, let's say, like this turkey chase video. It's cool. I hit the share button, click embed. All I have to do is copy this, right? So now if I come back over here to my new page, I paste that in here. All right, I get this. And if you get a second, it's going to show my turkey chase video right there. And that's okay. If you want to create a page per video, that's fine. But what if you've got a lot of turkey videos you want to watch, right? Well, here's what you can do. You can do this cool connection piece here. So hit these dots and connect to source. You can see the source is Gobble. That's my web part over here. I choose that. And now I come in here, and the key part is this is that code we talked about, right? So I'm going to delete that. And so just the same kind of format as in list formatting, I'm going to type in Goblin. You can see I actually got completion there, but there's what I want to do is I want to pick that. And so now what that does, all right, so you can see I've got, just to make sure everyone can see that, what I typed was square bracket, $, and then the internal name of my column, which happened to be Gobble. All right, and then I close off with a square bracket. And what it's going to do is going to automatically replace that with whatever value is coming from that source. So in this case, that's this list over here. So I'm going to close this guy. So now as I'm kind of using this, right, I select that. Oh, there's that video. There's that video. There's the circuit chase. And I've got like let's see, we've got all these extra things, though, that are going to confuse users. And I just want this navigation piece, right? So how can I make that a little better? I mean, that's really cool. Go ahead and publish that guy. What if I come over here? Am I still connected? All right. I had a weird blip there. Okay. So I come back to my list, right? What if I wanted to apply a format to this? So let's go to all items. And I'm going to apply a view format, because a view format will not just affect single columns, it'll affect the whole thing here, which is what I want. So I'm going to hit Format Current View, and I'm going to copy one of our samples over here, our generic video button. Let me grab that. I'm going to just paste here, and we'll go through what it does real quick. Preview that. All it's doing is we're coming in here, and we're creating a div, and we're creating an icon, right? So this MS video solid, that's that guy right here. And then we're putting our text, which is whatever the title was, right? Which happens to be Gobble for each one of these. All right, that's all I'm doing, but I'm making sure that other piece is there, and I'm hiding the column header, right? So I set this hide column header to true, and gets rid of all those columns, so it feels a little better, right? So I'm going to save that. Now if I go back to my new page here, I'm going to refresh, you'll see my format actually gets applied here, which is awesome. One thing I'm going to make sure I do, though, is make this even less list web part-like. I'm going to edit the web part properties for the list web part. I'm going to uncheck show command bar. And apply that gets rid of that extra junk up there. I can't quite get rid of some of these titles, and I can't get rid of the see all, which is a little upsetting. But if I do that, though, republish that, now I've got this kind of miniature application. So I've got my video kind of portal page. I come in here, and I can apply whatever formatting I want, right? So you can get really elaborate here. But now I've got a video selector. You could also do this with documents or all sorts of other pieces, right? So you had a document library. You wanted to explore how you wanted to do like thumbnails here and have a nice viewer. By setting up that quick connection, you can use view formatting in connection with some of the out-of-the-box web parts to create kind of a miniature application. And you notice I didn't really do any coding outside of cutting and pasting some JSON from our free sample repository, right? And that wasn't even necessary. That's just me putting some icing on this, or whipped cream on this pumpkin pie. Look at that, very topical. All right, so that's pretty cool, right? So let's take a look here, just to review. All right, so if you use that list view web part or the document library web part, your formats will apply over there, including a lot of your styles and colors. There used to be a lot more discrepancies between the list view and list view web part. There aren't near as many now, which is awesome. There are a couple of gotchas there, right? The title and the see all are going to continue to show. Here's a hint: you can actually type a space as the title, and then it won't show anymore. But you're still going to get that see all link, which will take you back to the main list view. But if you take advantage of that column selection hiding, in this case, we didn't want to hide the selection because we're using the selection to embed or to send the current embed code over to the embed web part. But hiding that column header really takes away that kind of list feel altogether. And then make sure you hide the command bar within the web part. That's a big one to make sure it gets rid of like the export to Excel and all that other stuff, which can be helpful. But generally, if you're trying to create this kind of miniature application experience, you're not going to want. So a couple of resources for you. Get the full documentation over here. This sample, this generic video button, it's not super elaborate, but it'll kind of show you how to do it and also walks through that kind of connection that I did very, very quickly. Of course, you can always watch the video and put it on half speed. I don't know how you do that, but you could. It's an option. And if you are in the U.S. or elsewhere and you just really want to celebrate, Thanksgiving, and you need help with your turkey, here's the turkey helpline. So that's a free service to get information on how to properly cook one of these delicious turkeys. That's all I got.
Thank you, Chris. Super helpful, super helpful. So I think we'll move directly on Sergei's screen. No point for actually something to my screen, but really cool. And it's really, like you said, it's really great to see that the list and library view web parts are getting to the same level, and that which has been the objective obviously from day one, but it's always a resourcing thing and getting these things to the right level. But it's really cool to see that. And now, Sergei, congratulations beforehand. Good that you had a time to actually also do a quick demo in here before things getting really busy. So it's not your is it your first one, by the way, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, that's the first
okay
one.
So let's actually jump on your screen. This is really cool demo and really cool solution. So we'll spend quite a lot of time on this one, and then we might have some time in Q&A time on the end, but let's see how it goes. And if you need to go, just let us know, and then you go. That's normal.
Okay,
take it away.
Yeah, thank you very much for congratulations. We are still eagerly waiting. Okay, quick introduction. My name is Sergei Sergeev. I'm from Belarus, Minsk. I'm SharePoint and Office 365 developer and consultant, Microsoft MVP under Office development category. Most of the time I work as independent contractor. And in this demo, we're going to take a look at real-time PnP provisioning with SignalR and SharePoint Application Customizer. And we are going to start with a bit of theory. Yeah, so sorry guys, no demo at the beginning. And we are starting with the problem statement. In other words, what issue we're going to solve in this demo. Let's say that you've just created a brand new SharePoint website, and you also have a custom background process connected to this website. For example, PnP provisioning process or PnP provisioning and some custom code which somehow configures or updates the website. The main idea is that this process is still constantly updating your website and the website isn't fully ready for use, right? And this background task usually takes significant amount of time, let's say half an hour, maybe an hour. And this is the issue because your users see the website, but the site is still under construction. New lists are being added, probably look and feel is changing, etc. And the site is not fully ready yet, and that might be confusing for the users. And there is a solution. The solution is to, for example, simply show a kind of indication to a user that the process is on its own way. For example, using this progress bar like on the image. But don't limit yourself. You can use any other things, like, for example, you can use right side pane to show all the applied steps, etc. Maybe some other user interface, but I selected a progress bar. And this bar updates itself as we finish single operation on a server. For example, we provisioned lists and fields, we added client-side pages, navigation, etc. But the question is how to update this progress without requiring a user to constantly refresh the page, to constantly hit this F5 button, right? So one option would be using server polling on a timer basis. For example, you can send an async HTTP request to the server asking for an update every 1 second or every 10 seconds. And this might work. However, it's not efficient, and additionally, it adds some unnecessary load on the server. And moreover, web technology and ASP.NET in particular provides a better answer on this question. And we are going to use SignalR, which is part of ASP.NET, a SignalR service, in order to push real-time notification updates from the server to the client. The updates about the current operation on a server. So in that case, our user is aware that something is still happening on the website is not fully ready, and that's a good chance for a user to have a cup of tea or a coffee. But probably you know what is SharePoint framework and application customizer, etc. But what is SignalR exactly? SignalR, that's a technology which makes it possible to create a two-way interactive communication channel between the user's browser and the server. Under the hood, by default, SignalR uses technology called WebSockets as transport layer between a server and the client. And WebSockets today, they are broadly supported. You see that it is Internet Explorer 10 plus. And what else? SignalR is capable of sending push notifications from a server side to all connected clients. So a client, in our case, that's a user's browser. And it looks like this is exactly what we need for our problem, to solve our problem. We will use SignalR to push notifications about the current PnP provisioning operation to the users. Because in this situation, our server, our background process is the source of events, okay? So now I think we understand the problem, the solution, and we understand what is SignalR. Let's finally go ahead and see the demo. First of all, I'm going to create a new communication website, and I'm going to use a custom site design called PnP Drone. Let me show you what is, how did I make this custom site design. First of all, I have a site script. Site script contains two site script actions. The first one triggers a flow, and this flow simply adds a new message into the Azure queue. I'm going to demonstrate you this Azure. That's an Azure Logic app. That's not it's not Power Automate, aka MS Flow, because in Power Automate HTTP connector is premium. So if you don't have premium subscription, then you can use Azure Logic apps for the same purpose. So that's something I did here. I use Azure Logic app, and I use HTTP when HTTP request is received trigger. And what I do, I simply put a new message on a PnP provisioning queue, and I put a web URL as parameter. And the next action in my site script is associate extension. I have an extension called PnP Notifier, which will later we will see that it will show this progress bar to the end users. And finally, site design. The site design, it is called PnP Drone, and this site design has this site script associated. So let's go ahead and create a new website. I'm going to, let's say, PnP Drone demo and the owner, and click finish. Creating. Okay, let's open. And by the way, right now you see that how Microsoft solved this issue with progress notifications. And we see this right side pane, which shows all the steps applied from my site design. So we see that MS Flow was triggered and the extension was associated with this website. Let's see the updated site. And right now we know that under the hood we have a PnP provisioning web job, which is right now it is running, or maybe it is preparing. That is why our website is not fully ready yet. That is why we see this message saying that preparing the engine, and this message comes from our custom extension application customizer called PnP Netfire. So basically, yeah, right now you see that it is starting, and now we are provisioning list instances. So what just happened? Our web job started its work, and web job sent a few notifications to the browser, and the browser updated the user experience. So this top line goes forward. Let's see how it looks like from a very high-level perspective. So I've created a new communication website based on custom site design here at step number 1. We have our website, and we have an Azure Logic App, which added a new queue to Azure queue, and we have a PnP Provisioning web job, which listens to our Azure queue. So in some words, our Azure queue executes PnP Provisioning web job. And finally, Azure web job adds new SharePoint artifacts like lists, fields, etc. And at the same time, PnP Provisioning job pushes notifications to our SignalR server. And SignalR server, in turn, notifies our UI or client browser about current progress. For example, we see that currently we are adding client-side pages. Okay, so right now let's leave it, and let's go and see some coding. Let's start with I think with SignalR Hub. Basically, we have 3 components here. That's SignalR Hub, that's Azure Web Job, Provisioning Web Job, and finally SharePoint Application Customizer. We're going to start with SignalR Hub, and this is the hub itself, the code. The code itself is not complicated, I would say. A few important moments here is this authorize attribute, because we shouldn't expose any enterprise API to outside world without authentication. And this hub uses Azure ID GWT authentication. That is why authorize attribute is required here. And we have 3 methods in order to handle different requests to clients. The first one is notify. This method simply sends notify event to all connected clients. So these are all SignalR related things. So this code sends notify to our browser, and additionally it sends some data which contains, for example, current progress and let's say current operation name. Next, we have completed event. This event notifies our browsers, our clients, that we are fully completed the provisioning process. And finally, we have initial state. Initial state, it is called callable method, because you can call this method from client, because if you remember, SignalR is a way to establish two-way communication channel. So I can send requests from server, like using notify and completed events. So I notify clients, and I can also execute a method from client side on a server. So I use initial state in order to immediately update my user interface with current status. For example, in case if a user opens a page for the first time, or if a user simply refreshes the current page. That is why I use this method. I call this method from client in order to get current status. And then notify method automatically updates the progress. And if you go to startup class, that's by the way, that's ASP.NET Core solution. And there are some important things to establish the authentication, GWT authentication with Azure AD. Basically, you should just call a few methods and configure authentication with some important methods like validate audience, issue validator, and some other things. Okay, let's go and see our provisioning job. So here we have the job. The job has two main functions. The first function is to provision objects using PnP, and the second part is to delete our custom top component here, this one component, because we need this component only while we are provisioning the website, but at the very end, we should delete this. And we have a method which deletes the application customizer, because under the hood it uses custom actions. That is why we simply need to find a custom action by its name and finally to delete it. And the provisioning process is here. First of all, I store all the data and the template on Azure Blob. So if we go to to Storage Explorer, we can see that I have blob container called PnP drone, and I have all the files, and I have the template available here. That is why in the code I use XML storage template provider and Azure storage connector for files. And finally, apply provision template method executes the process, and this apply information, that's the delegate which notifies the clients, the browsers, about the progress. It is possible via this notify progress method. If we go and see how it looks like, that's just I would say two-liner. The first line is to create and establish connection to our SignalR hub. So I use just built-in ASP.NET classes like hub connection builder. And what is very important here is this generate access token method, because as we saw, our hub has authorized attribute, and we set up GWT authentication in our configure services. That is why it is very important to provide valid authentication. So here for authentication, I use Azure ID app registration. Again, if you go and see the the Azure ID, I've added the app registration here, and I use client ID and client secret in order to generate an GWT access token using MSAL.NET library using version 2 endpoints. And I generate the token for my client itself. That is why I use this scope. And finally, the second line is to hub connection send async. For example, here I specified notify method. So how it works, it sends this state, this provisioning state. Basically, that's a message, the progress, and the total steps. And at the very end, it will hit here. And finally, all our clients, the browser, will receive this this new message about new progress and new state. Okay, and so this is the job itself. Again, for authentication against SharePoint, I use certificate-based approach. You can use any other option. For example, you can use SharePoint app registration for authentication. But as I have the Azure ID registration here, then I decided to use the same Azure ID registration. That is why if you go to API permissions, then you see that I have added full control scope for SharePoint. Okay, and finally, let's go and see our client-side part, the SharePoint Framework Application Customizer. This is the React component I used to display this progress. That's just a few elements. And the key thing here is, again, this SignalR Hub Connection Builder and Hub Connection. These are classes from ASP.NET SignalR Node.js module. And here again, you see I used access token factor in order to generate the valid GWT token. So if you go and see how it works, I use built-in SPFX AD token provider in order to generate the access token. And the client ID, it comes from Constance here. That's the same client ID I use for my SignalR Hub application registration. So it's from here. And finally, under this connection, I have exactly 3 methods, the same way as for SignalR Hub. Here I have connection on notify, on completed, and on initial state. So these callbacks, they handle different events coming from the server from SignalR Hub. Okay. And finally, if you go and see the user interface, it says that the site is fully provisioned. Now we can refresh it. And finally, we will see the updated website based on the drone template. The template I use, it's under GitHub repository SPDev provisioning templates. I use Contoso drone landing website as a base for this demo. Okay, so yeah, I think this is it from my side.
Thank you, Sergei. Don't disconnect. Okay. Because I want to ask a few questions and let's talk about some of the things. Really, really cool solution. And thanks for clarifying the bits and pieces because I think that's highly helpful for people to understand how would I adapt these things as well. Now, flow versus logic app was a good point which you did, and this is obviously super clear for you because you thought about that one as well. But in the site designs, you can activate either a Microsoft Power Automate and a flow inside of Power Automate. It's used to be a Microsoft Flow, or you can activate a logic app. And logic app is basically behind of the Microsoft Flow as well, or Power Automate, whatever we call these things nowadays. So, but and the difference, like you said, is really about the licensing. The HTTP request licensing in the Microsoft Power Automate is a premium license, and that means that there's a licensing impact on it. And did we lose Sergei completely?
Nope.
Okay, you just stop sharing.
Yeah,
okay,
I stopped sharing.
Got it. Because I would have asked you to pinpoint something, but that's fine. That's fine. Now, but a key point there to understand is obviously if you use a logic app, then the logic app has a cost impact as well, but it's not necessarily similar cost impact as using the Power Automate. So it's one of those things where when you make the design decision, you need to understand, has the customer already have a license on the Power Automate, and if they need to have a license, how much is the cost impact versus what will be the cost impact of logic app? Have you, just out of curiosity, on your case, Sergei, have you done any cost estimate on how much the logic app would cost in a normal scenario, or has anybody in the call made any estimates on that?
No, actually, I haven't compared.
Because obviously that's a really interesting discussion point, and I'm curious if somebody actually has any experiences on that, but no immediate actions, at least on the jam. Now the second thing. So the second thing, what I wanted to actually kind of mention, in your case, the toolbar was super settled. But to be fair, like you pointed out as well, Sergei, you could actually almost do a full screen overlay, which is saying, hey, the site is not ready. We are still progressing and doing stuff. So you don't actually need to be super small and settle on the messaging. It is a design decision, absolutely. Inside of Microsoft, initially, we didn't actually tell the end user when a site design was still applying. We didn't actually tell that it's still applying, and then that freaked out people. So that's why the panel model came to be as a new version in the site designs, and we implemented that there. You could implement your custom panel as well. So in this case, it was a small header, but again, it could be much more visible indication as well. And then there was the one thing which I wanted to just pinpoint. The site design added the application customizer. On the site level, the application customizer was deployed using a tenant scope deployment option. So, and that was then available for all of the sites, but basically in the site designs, we just added the application customizer as a user custom action entry. That's what it basically meant on the JSON definition. And then in the code, we removed that. So that way, that indication was no longer relevant. Quite nice pattern, actually, of making things happen. So super nice implementation. And then a final piece, maybe just to talk about this one as well. In Ignite and past Ignite in the conferences, we demoed the Fluid framework, which actually does provide similar kind of capabilities whenever we'll ship it as the SignalR. It is designed for other things as well. So Fluid framework will be used in the future for document collaboration, co-authoring scenarios and all of that. And you could actually use the Fluid framework way of communicating between things. But again, SignalR is one of the, how would I put it, industry standards and ways of doing these kind of things as well. So it's a pretty nice implementation. Any other learnings from your side, Sergei, related on the design? Was this just a experiment which you wanted to do, or was this a customer engagement?
I used SignalR in my previous projects, but they were for just regular ASP.NET with SharePoint. ASP.NET separate web app, not integrated to SharePoint. And this demo is more like experiment on how you can implement all the things, including valid authentication, Azure ID authentication from both sides, from SPFX, from Azure Web Job, etc. So yeah,
makes perfect sense. But it is pretty clean. It's also open source. It is available in GitHub. So it's a quite nice setup on showing the pattern, and that's what we always want to do within the community call. So explaining how to achieve certain things using the demos. So really cool setup. Now. There was a message. One thing interesting: to call a manual flow from the site design as HTTP web request, no premium connected there. Is to call a manual flow for site design. Now I'm not following. Rodrigo, you need to explain. Can you go unmuted and related on that one? That is an interesting discussion point because we still have a few minutes to talk about.
Yes. So, hello everybody. So basically, you can call a manual flow. You can put the URL of the manual flow on the web design call for the flow itself. So it's you cannot put it's not the premium connector, so you can use it instead of the HTTP request.
Ah, that's clever. That's a really good point as well. And then it really depends again. But to be fair, it depends on what your manual flow is doing, because I think adding a message to the storage queue is a premium connector, unless I'm completely mistaken. I don't know. I'm not a flow guy.
It is, yeah.
So yeah, exactly. So you would get your execution to flow, but then how do you get that to the Azure function? That's always the question. So using the logic app is definitely an option there as well. But again, cost structure is different. It's not based on the end user license. It's based on the consumption of the logic app. So, and haven't done any actual investigations on the cost structures there. Now, let me actually move one slide forward. Any other questions, comments? That's a good point from Rodrigo, definitely. We have a few minutes before we are closing for today. We can always close earlier as well, but typically there's a some questions related on anything on SharePoint framework or turkeys. I don't know about them, but maybe Chris Kent knows. So, or he knows actually a phone number which can help. I think US-based persons who have joined are already eagerly waiting on getting to the dinner table. It is pretty early on the US at this point. Jim has a question. We still have a few minutes. Finland is pretty dark. We are having Black Friday 3 months in a row for every single Friday, starting pretty much now in Helsinki. So it is dark. Related on doing a demo, must the demonstrated solution be open source? No, definitely not. So we don't want these demos in this community calls to be, let's say, product sales events. So that's one thing to be aware. But then again, if you want to explain a pattern which some solution or internally built thing is actually using without sharing the code, absolutely welcome. It's all about understanding those patterns and models and architectures in those calls, because I think that then super helpful for everybody in the call. But again, like I said, it's not about selling your product, and those things we do not want to actually see on the calls. I think that's it then, if there's no other super urgent questions. So let me actually move in the one slide forward, and we are heading to the closer slides. So the next general SharePoint special interest group call is December 12th. Actually, Melissa Torres is going to join us on that call to do a recap of all of the new updates related on site designs, which she announced in the Ignite. So Melissa owns two different things. Melissa is a PM in our feature crew, and she owns two different things. One is the hub, so she's the hub lady, and she also owns site design. So she's going to talk about at least 20 minutes on the 12th of December about the latest and greatest on the site designs. And then we have other demos. If I remember correctly, we're going to actually have a learning pathways, the updated demo as well from Julie Turner on that one. So really looking forward on that as well. And then the next special interest group call for SharePoint framework development is on the 5th of December. Can't remember right now what are the demos on that one, but I think that's actually full as well. But thank you everybody for joining. AKMS SP PnP is the address if you're looking into the recordings and demos and documentation and community and open source initiatives. Everything is available in the AKMS SP PnP. The recording of this demo will be available in the YouTube channel within 24 hours, like typically. But I think that's it for now. So thank you everybody. Have a great Thanksgiving if you're calling from US side of the house, and have a great Thursday, Friday, and a weekend otherwise. Cheers. Bye-bye.